We had a late evening last night. We both had a show, or we were on the same show.
We put on a show.
We put on a yeah, we
We
did.
put on
We
a
put
show.
on a show for these motherfuckers.
The absolute disdain for the audience. We're putting on a show for you, motherfuckers.
Oh, I said motherfuckers in a way like, yeah, you motherfuckers are my motherfuckers. Welcome to A Work in Progress.
A work in progress.
With eyes on fire, I'm blinded to the sun. My senses tell me my day is never done.
I'm feeling fine today. I think we should talk about it because it's perfect for our work in progress.
Mhm.
Our show. We're doing a tour. We're putting on longer sets, longer sets. I have to keep doing that. So it's not sex.
SETS sets.
Longer comedy sets.
Let's talk about sets, baby.
How long you want me to do for the sets? That
The
didn't
quicker
make sense.
the better. It'd be great. Kind of tired. Got a long day tomorrow.
Yeah, we had a long night, which was great, and because it included Korean barbecue, and we all know I'd smack my own mama for some Korean barbecue.
Slap your mama in the mouth.
Sorry, Michelle. Sorry to put you out there like that. Okay. What was I trying to say? I was trying to say, it was a fun night. I'm really glad. Just to back up, this was a very nerve-wracking night for me because I feel like I was very worried about attendance at our show, and I was getting really anxious, and I was going sort of down this spiral of, oh no one's gonna come. This is gonna be embarrassing. I have no friends. Nobody likes me. I'm not funny. This is gonna be a disaster. I should just stop doing comedy. Okay,
Right.
so that's a little bit of the
I think we both were feeling some of that stuff.
Yeah. And then the more I kind of talked about it and thought about it, I was like, you know what? You have to start somewhere. I'm trying to really put my ego to the side and be legit the whole a work in progress. We're all a work in progress. And this project for me, what I'm working on is very much a work in progress. I'm still trying to figure it out and giving myself permission to be almost dive into let's do it badly. And then it's been done, and then I can get better, and then I can just move on. I can continually progress forward, even if it takes a long time, or it's slow, or it's winding. I will have started, because starting is the biggest part. And then we did the show. We had a great audience. We had a lot of people. They were lovely. My set, I felt wasn't good. Wasn't horrible or bad or anything, but it wasn't good. And I was very tight in it, and I just didn't have fun on stage.
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that was oh, I've ruined it, but then it's okay, that's fine. Everyone, let it go. People are still gonna like you. People are still gonna be they're not gonna be that loser. We can't be friends with her now.
Yeah.
And then the next time I'll make it better, and I'll have more fun, and I'll make those adjustments or make the jokes better or whatever I need to do. But for me, the crowning moment of last night was watching your set, and just this beauty of this authentic and vulnerable and very funny and very poignant 30 minutes where you acknowledged the audience, which is something I was I didn't even acknowledge our audience. You were with them. It was a team effort where you were all one unit together. And it was very inspiring for me, where I was oh, that's what I want. That's what I want mine to feel like what I'm watching happening on stage right now with Jonathan. So for me, I was what a gift to I was oh, it didn't feel good to not have a good set. It never does. But then to be oh, but now I have this thing that I can try to work on turning it into something more like that I'm seeing, that I love.
Right.
So that was great.
No, yeah. Well, I mean, thank you for saying that. I didn't see your set. I mean, these are things you and I have already talked about, but knowing some of the jokes that you told last night, because I heard other people talking about your jokes afterwards.
Yeah.
And I've also seen you do them in murder.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think we filmed it. I I said we got game film. We can go back and watch our game film if we want to watch each other's game film and give each other notes. Like
Mhm.
I'm more than happy to do that for you. I wish that I had seen your set live, but I also was in my own head. So I
Yeah.
was like, let me just sort of take time to like not do that, not be that
Yeah.
person. But no, I think maybe the thing that I know you're saying you had a bad set, but I think maybe the biggest thing that is true is that you didn't maybe allow yourself to have fun on stage.
Yeah. That's a
Um,
big one for me.
yeah, and so I think but like I said, I heard people talking about both of our sets, but yours as well, and they were like, "Oh, this was great," and all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think like everything you just said, just kind of recapping, I was sort of feeling the same thing and leading up to a show. And yes, we had a great audience and they were lovely. And thank you guys if you listen to the podcast so much for coming out. Um, I had a lot of anxiety as well, just sort of like going into it, just like not necessarily not feeling funny or embarrassed that people didn't want to come to a show. It was just more for me, I think I needed them there because I knew what I was going to be doing in
Mhm.
as far as like this first half hour that I'm working on. And so I was like, oh well, if no one shows, this night might be a waste of time.
Yeah.
But no, but yeah, people showed up and they showed up for both of us, and I think that's really beautiful. Um, yeah, I think you said something that like it's something that's been kind of in my mind for a while as far as stand up. Like I love making people laugh, obviously, and telling stories that make people smile and whatever. But I think more than making people laugh, I like making people feel something.
Yeah. Well, you definitely
And
did that last night.
yeah, and so like like I woke up this morning, and I'm rambling, and I apologize. I woke up this morning, and I like you can see my bedroom. I have like these gigantic post-it notes. I don't know if you use
Mhm.
those
I do
or
not
not.
like the big like sheets. They use it
Yeah,
like
like they're
tea
like
for
post-it notes,
treats or
but they're just
whatever.
huge.
Yeah.
And so like I have those, I have like 3 or 4 of those in my wall with like big headlines, big sort of themes. And then whenever I think about a joke that might pop into the theme or a memory, I just write it down and then maybe later I
Mhm.
might like think about it. But this morning I was just sort of like I was trying to think like what's the through line? Like what's the through line for all of that? And the word that came to me this morning was acceptance. And I was like, "Oh, maybe that's what I'm processing still is like this my whole life I've just been looking for acceptance,
Yeah.
and at times I feel like I found it, at times I feel like I've uh maybe fought for it or accepted the type of acceptance that was just there because it sort of was like a band-aid and it felt good for me. So it was actually kind of cool, like I mean, and I'm thank you, and I'll shut up and I'll stop talking. Thank you for saying that you liked what I presented on stage or how I presented it or whatever. But
I
I
loved it. Just to be
thank
clear.
you. Yeah, I think like at the end of the day, I was like, oh, not that I'm doing stand up for acceptance, but I was like, oh, I think my whole life has been about acceptance and trying to figure that out a little bit. So that may be, I may dive a little bit deeper into that with.
Yeah. I mean, it's full circle to what we're, started talking about with religion and community and stuff.
Sure. Yeah,
But also,
absolutely.
like, one thing that really struck me of like, because we all want to be accepted, we all want to be loved. That's what we're trying to do in life
Mhm.
since we were born. Like, you watch babies just like look and find the parents' eyes for the love and the
Mhm.
acceptance and the connection, right? Um, and one thing that like you're talking about, people relate to your stuff even though they're not a black man who grew up in a white area, like that the particulars are not necessarily the same for them, but the acceptance or want for that or need for that or how you approach that is very relatable. And for me it was like listening to people laugh loudly, like that laugh where you're like almost caught off guard because it's too true, like it's too
Right.
relatable, like people are like, ah, like it's too much,
Yeah.
and then go silent because you're talking about something that's tough.
Mhm.
And then like you were doing a sermon, hearing all these people go,
There was a couple.
like it
Yeah.
was like gave me chills. I was like, oh dang, like I am at like comedy AA church. Like it was like all those like the
Yeah.
different elements of that where
Yeah.
people are just like they're just like in it,
Mm.
So yeah, it was really like it was really great.
Yeah. Well, Thank you for saying that. I am excited for more shows
Yeah,
for
me
both
too.
of us. Um, and yeah, I think at one point I was like, oh, I only want to do this like twice a month, but now I'm like, when can I
Or
do it
once.
again?
I
Like,
know we
because I
have it
feel like
every
there's
two,
more to
once every
like
two
work
months.
on.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, I feel like that's not enough. I'm like, I want to bring it back. I want to do it again. They almost
Yeah,
like that same lineup and it like have fun with it and then like expand and slowly. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
yeah.
I agree. So everybody, you heard it here first. We're gonna make more shows because we want
We're gonna do more
them.
shows. The tour is gonna be more than just one show. You're gonna be in Switzerland, Geneva.
Yes, I'm going to Geneva for a festival.
You've done stand up overseas before, though.
Mhm.
I've never done. Well, I mean, I don't know if I can count. I did stand up in Cancun. I don't know if that counts.
Why not?
Well, I mean, because I
It's
did
not
it
over
to
the
like
sea, but
American
it's in the
tourists.
sea. I
Yeah,
mean, it all counts. It's a different vibe. It's a different place. It's the jokes work differently. I'm sure you did American tourists, but also people from other places. Cancun's full of everybody.
maybe.
Americans, Canadians.
Yeah,
Well, mostly Americans, Canadians, but
I
it's
didn't.
closest.
I didn't poll the audience. Maybe I should
Yeah.
have.
Everyone can just take out their phones and show me on your phone where your hometown
Yeah,
is. Thank you.
if everyone can just bring out their passports. We're just checking passports here in Cancun.
Yeah, I've been actually to Switzerland before to do comedy. I did the
Oh, okay.
Montreux Comedy Festival, but it's in a different like part of Switzerland. But yeah, I mean, like I've done comedy in Canada because that's where I'm from, but I've done it in South Africa. I've done it in Europe a
Do
little
you
bit.
find like maybe because you've done it in a lot of different places, also here in the US, but do you find like that people are attracted to different styles more, or have you sensed that, or are you just kind of like, no, I just kind of do my thing and
I
it
mean, I
all
think I do
works?
my thing to a certain extent, but like you can tell the difference of like what comedy is in different countries for
Mm.
sure. Like even Canada to America is different in a lot
Oh,
of
okay.
ways. Um, like it's so funny. Like in Canada, I remember this one time where I was at a club and this American comedian came and he had this whole bit that relied on people. Like he went up and he was like, "Yeah, like I'm a veteran," and he waited for
Yeah, you
applause.
waited for the thank you for your service applause.
Yeah, but in
Yeah,
Canada, it's a very different feel about what the army and military and veterans like. There's nobody clapped,
right.
and he was like gobsmacked. Like he was just like, "What? What? You guys don't clap to that?" And then it was this weird thing where he was like, "What's wrong with y'all?" Like, and they were like, "We don't know what's happening. Like we're waiting
Yeah,
for the joke, you know." And he couldn't like move on right away because he was like, "I need you guys to like adore me
sure,
before I
yeah.
can move on with this," because he was going to tell some stuff that required the audience to like really get it. And like, so that's one small example, but it was like, oh yeah, that's like a big difference between Canada and America, that we're
Hmm.
not like patriotic in the way of like army, military, defend ourselves, like, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah,
I
like
mean,
comedy is I found it to be very different from here there. When I was in South Africa, I like loved it because it was one of the first places in my life. I'm a mixed woman for anyone who's like listening and not seeing.
uh-huh.
And I grew up in a very like small city in Canada where there was not a lot of diversity then, and it was primarily white people. And so to go to and my family is all black, fully black. Like my dad's side is all Nigerian. Like everybody's still in Nigeria. Nobody's married to anyone who's not Nigerian, right? Like it's a very Nigerian family. And then my mom's side is all white, like pasty white, like you know what I mean? So there's
Yeah.
nobody who looks like me other than my brother.
Hmm.
And when I went to Toronto from Winnipeg, I was like, oh wow, like so diverse. You see all these different people. When I went to South Africa, there is a whole group, historical group that looks like me, right? Who are
Hmm.
like mixed, black and white, like very
Yeah.
like European white and African black. And I was like, oh, like it was such a beautiful moment because it was the first time where I legit was like, my people.
It was
These are my
like
people.
your version of Wakanda almost.
It was Wakanda, like the mixed people of South Africa. And it's so funny because okay, so there the like term is colored,
Hmm.
right? Like, which would be offensive a lot of places. But I was like telling people, I was like, this is amazing. This is the first time I've ever seen this. And their joke was like, there's like kind of like this, offensive or whatever, like kind of slighting jokes about how like colored people are sort of like trashy or whatever. And so my friend's like, no, you don't want that to be your people. And I was like, no, I don't
Oh,
care what it is. These are my people. Like, this is the first time where I feel like I fit in somewhere. Like, maybe that was the first time where I feel like I had a community, because I was like, you guys get it. Like, having a parents that are different colors and different cultures
sure.
and like
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, it's very different there too. But like, I don't know, just something about it. I feel like something about my soul came alive in South
Mm,
Africa. It
yeah.
was so beautiful.
Is there this maybe a bit of a historical question, but like does like I guess I'm going to say hopefully I say things right. If for South Africans who are darker complexion, like
Hmm.
is there a bit of not hatred, but more of like they just sort of like hate on, and maybe if that's the right way of saying it,
I don't
people like
think
I think you use the word
so.
colored, so
I think it's still very much like white. Like, there's a sense of like the racism and the segregation and the apartheid stuff is like strong, is very strong still. It still
right,
like exists in many ways systematically. So I think it's more like, if you're not white, you're not
right.
white, you know?
If you're not white, but
Um
also if you're not black, you're like kind of you're just stuck in this sort of like
Well, no,
middle.
I feel like it's
Oh,
like black and mixed people are sort of on one side
oh, okay,
and white is on a different side.
okay.
Was my experience. And like, not that
Yeah.
like, not that there's still apartheid by like law, but like it's very strange going there where like you see these like big like kind of mansiony houses in gated
Mm-hmm.
communities, and then next to it it's sort of like where black people live, and it's
Right.
like, you know, tin shanties and stuff like that, like toilets that are just like holes dug outside, like that kind of thing. Like, I think I was mentioning, when I was there, it was like very sad because a kid fell into I don't want to call it a toilet because that's not what it is, but like a hole,
Right.
and like died. And
Mm.
this is next to, you know, a gated mansion
Sure.
community.
Yeah.
And so you're like, it's still very, systematically, historically, that stuff is left over. It's not like
Yeah.
it's just like everything became equitable, like in any way,
Yeah.
So, um, I don't
Yeah.
know
I
why.
want.
I feel like I got real deep and like sad on everything, but
No, no. I mean, I kind of asked the question because, like, what I thought I heard, which I probably misheard, but it like made me think about like I don't know if I hear it as much as I did when I was younger, but there was always sort of this thing in the Black community that like colorism. I mean, I
yeah,
think a lot of countries deal with colorism, and people with lighter skin maybe were seen like better than. Um,
yeah,
and so what I think I saw was people with darker skin kind of like always like making fun of people with light color skin, or like even for a while, I think even in Hollywood, like this idea, like the darker your skin was, like the less likely you were to like get a role. Like Wesley Snipes for a while, people were like, "Oh my God, how did he get that role? He is
yeah.
black as fuck," and everything else is going to
Totally.
people
That's
with
still
lighter skin.
very much a thing, I think.
Okay,
Like, that people like, Anthony Farrell, like Farrell?
Pharrell
Farrell?
Williams,
No,
the music
Anthony.
producer, Anthony.
Anthony Anthony and Pharrell Williams. No,
Yeah,
Anthony Farrell, who's an amazing writer, director, showrunner in
right,
Canada. He talks about like how he fights all the time for casting to be like not colorist. How
right.
he's like, this kid for this role is perfect, and everyone's like, oh, but maybe we could have this kid, and they
Hmm.
always are pointing to like a less dark kid.
Right,
And he's always like, no, we're gonna go with it. Like, he's like fights for it. And so
right.
like, even this day and age, that's still a huge thing, I think. And people even say like, well, it's harder to light black people, and you're like, this is the most racist
Hmm.
stuff I've ever heard. That
Hmm.
And I went to this event, Women of Color Unite, and they were talking about all this stuff, and they're talking about like how black people are treated as the other. If you're not white, like white is the standard, right? For
Right,
makeup, white, they teach
sure.
you how to do white people first and then add on. For hair, they've just added on that, like, hairstylists on set have to be able to take a course, a very short, very, not culturally like aware or intelligent kind of course about like how to do hair for black people. But like, white hair is the standard and then black hair is the other.
Right,
And white lighting is the standard, and black lighting for a black person is hard and
right.
difficult. There's a thing about like in Insecure, and how they have, you know, all these different tones of black skin, and how in lighting school they were taught like black skin gets lit with this kind of lighting, but like what black skin, like who's the
Right.
model for that, right? Like all this stuff. So like being aware that like black skin is multi-toned, and not that other skin isn't, you know what I mean?
Right.
But like black skin is like important to be able to show the tone. That's very significant for black people. And you want to look good. You want your dark skin to look amazing. You want your mixed skin to look amazing. I want my freckles to look powerful and to be seen, like all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So you want your hair, if you wear it in an afro, to not look like poorly lit, or to make it to be distracting how it's lit or whatever. So how like it's often that like white is the default and everything else is like a problem for people,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think even sort of like sort of as I'm listening to you talk about that, like just in like life, like whether it's our outward appearance or our inward appearance, I think that we just want to be seen,
Yeah.
and we shouldn't necessarily have to be seen in a way that other people think we're supposed to be seen. Like,
Yeah, like from the external lens versus like, how do I want to be seen? I was actually talking about this with there was a person on the panel who was talking about black hair and how it should be part of the preparation for films and TV,
Mhm.
and how it's part of like the art design, black hair.
Yeah.
And it was like very empowering because it made me realize like so many times I've been on set and I go to hair and makeup, and when I get into the hair chair, it's intimidating for some people to see this. And so they just look at it, even if it's like squished down on one side from sleeping, no matter what I come in with, they go, "Oh, that looks great. Yeah, okay, so
Oh man, I'm so glad you said that.
and you're like, it doesn't look great. Like you need, like, come on. Or like it'll be in my like pieces hanging in my eyes. And they're like, that's fine. I'm like, it's not fine. And we all know it's not fine. And I'm gonna look bad. And so in the last show I did, that was a huge difference. And it was like an aha moment for me. Cause I had just sort of, I think, gotten used to this, like, I'm less than. No one's gonna do my hair, no one's gonna fuss over it. It is not a part of this. It doesn't matter if it looks bad to them. And then this last show, it was part of the design of my character.
Right. Yeah.
And it was like
You had some
so
cool hairstyles.
empowering. Yeah, like my hair, I'm like legit. Sometimes I just look at pictures of myself from that. I just look at pictures because I'm like, look at me go. Look at those baby hairs. They've been laid. I was like, I have never felt so powerful and confident and like black.
Yeah.
Like when you talk about blackity black, I was like, bitch, be blackity black. I've never felt so black. I'm so happy. This is the best. Like I was just so happy. It was amazing. And you know, to be in the group that I was filming with, I was the only black person. So it was like, you know, my hairstylist on set, Ursula, shout out to Ursula, and Dorico, and Cassie, who did my makeup, they were like, we want you to look good. It's important for you to stand out. It's important for you to look black. It's important for you to have like different hairstyles. So people aren't like, she has to look the same though, otherwise people won't recognize her. You know, like that kind of shit that happens.
Yeah.
Like they were so into this idea of, we're going to show them. We're going to show them what it means to be a black actress, and we are doing it right. And so like, it was amazing. It was phenomenal. Yeah.
I'm glad you said that because like I remember, and I've had the similar experience in commercials, like showing up for the commercial, or like, yeah, or even just makeup, just sort of like,
yeah,
we think you're good. But I remember the first commercial I booked, and like, okay, so like if you're watching, I have hair. I don't have a lot. I used to have a little bit more, but I got some hair.
For people who aren't watching, it makes it sound like he's bald. Jonathan has a full-on forest, wonderful head of full curly black hair.
I can't wait until let me say that. Let me not say. I'm curious when it's going to go away.
Do you think you're going to go bald?
I don't know, because like, didn't they genetically, it's your mom's dad, right?
Yeah, something
That's
like
supposed to be genetic, but like my mom's dad, like my papa, rest in peace, is bald. He was bald when he passed away. So I'm like, ooh, let's keep this as long as we can.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'll put my hat back on. But I remember the first commercial I did, the lady who was white, was just, you know, that's just what she was. But I
she can't help it. She can't help it.
Yeah, it was, yeah. And like, she was just like, I don't know if it was, I love hair and makeup, especially hair. Because I love my hair being played with. Like, that I've never said that out loud. Like, I've had people ask
Confessions
me
with
like, "Oh, why do you have long hair?" And I'm
Jonathan.
like, "Oh, because it makes me more bookable." No, I like it when someone plays with my hair. I really do. And I remember sitting in this lady's, and she was like, "Oh, your hair is so nice." And then she like was like fluffy. She's like, "It's so soft." And then like for 15 minutes, she just kind of rubbed her hands in my hair, and I'm like, everything in me is like, I'm not supposed to like this, but I love it.
They're like calling you to set. She's like just turns off the walkie-talkie and
Yeah,
continues to play with
yeah,
your
yeah,
hair.
yeah. She was kind of like playing in my hair, and she didn't really restyle it or anything. And maybe
That lady
to
didn't even work there. That lady was not the hair
ooh,
person.
she just was some random person who was like, "Whose hair? Who can I pay with the hair?" Maybe,
They're
maybe
like,
so.
Nancy, get back to accounting. Get back.
Right. Nancy's always sneaking back from accounting, playing with people's hair, get the set shut down. Um, I took you off track because we were really talking about comedy in other countries and whatever. And don't just ignore me. I'm just gonna take this laptop into a different room.
You going to the bathroom? Are we doing
Yeah, I'm gonna go sit on the toilet while we talk.
a podcast?
But
I'll
no,
never
you
make
were
that joke
talking
again.
about like
Sorry.
just doing comedy in other countries, and
Mhm.
I'm a shadow of myself. This is not professional. Well, we'll get it together.
Why are you moving to a different room? You did
I
not
think
express.
my internet just picks up a little bit better here.
What room is this? Where are we right now?
We're in my bedroom.
This is where all the magic.
This is where the magic does
Cut
not
to
happen.
You pulling a rabbit out of a hat.
Ta-da!
There was something I was thinking I wanted to talk to you about, but I can't remember what it is right now. I'm trying to like bring it back to the front of my brain. Oh, okay. It's really related to the show and stuff,
Okay.
but like this concept of is it hard for you to maybe like start something new that maybe you're not good at, or even do something that you are good at, like trying to write a new hour or trying out new jokes? Is it difficult for you to kind of put the ego on the side and be like, this might be bad? Or do you struggle with that, or is that just like that's part of the game, that's part of the thing, you got to do it?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think I do sort of thrive. I mean, yeah, like a comedy show, I want people to like it. I want people to say they love it. I want them to laugh, all those things. I want them to feel like they got their money's worth.
Mhm.
But I do sort of thrive in the awkwardness, like how can I make this more weird, especially in the type of shows that we're doing, like these sort of work in progress show. Like I feel confident that, I'll get to what is a complete sort of feel, something that might be sellable or whatnot.
Mhm.
But I take a lot of joy in like things not going right. Because I
I
feel like I
wish that I
learn
had that.
something when it doesn't go right.
Yeah.
What about you? Yeah, I mean, do you sort of thrive in the chaos of things not going right, or do you prefer when you're performing things to be kind of
No,
fluffed up?
I that's one thing I'm trying to learn, to like let my ego, like not push my ego to the side. What I'm really trying to learn is, I read this great quote. I'm trying to sit back and watch my ego do its dance and know that that is not me. Okay.
Aw,
So what like
deep.
for me that means I'm very scared of failing.
Right.
And like, even though I know logically and I believe that failure is really where you learn the most and it's important for success and you cannot find success. And I think this is like a newer thing. I didn't used to always be like this, but I think recently, because I'm going through all this transition and I'm trying to like really find myself again, I'm like, when I go up on stage, I want people to love me. I want them to be on board and know. And so I want to, like, it's not even about like I want to give them their money's worth. Like, it's about me. Like, I need to
Right.
feel loved, And so when I'm failing, I don't feel loved. And that's why I think like last night, because I already had this sort of like, I was nervous, I was anxious.
Sure,
When
sure.
people aren't laughing, instead of doing the thing that I always do and like relate, like stop and like relate and see the
Yeah.
audience or call it out or talk about it or whatever, I was just like, keep going. They will love you if you keep going.
Yeah.
Like, if you can make this
I
work.
will make you love me.
Yeah, and it's like I get so scared and in like I like go inward,
Right.
but like that is the thing that's very terrifying to me is like the awkwardness of that. And I love awkward in real life. Like I
Yeah.
love being in conversations where I'm like, let's dive deeper. But like it's just so there's something right now where I'm actively fighting against this like feeling that I need to be loved at all times on stage. And if I'm not, I'm the worst and I should just like jump off stage and stop comedy,
Sure.
So like trying to find the space to be like, it's gonna grow and I have to go out and do it. But like, yeah, I don't know. I'm like, this is one of the reasons like I think before I was like naively confident about a lot of stuff. And so things worked out for me. Like, if you like
Yeah.
step in, like it's gonna succeed. It
Yeah,
succeeds
like
almost all the
we
time.
talked a few episodes about fake it till you make it. Like,
Yes.
yeah, this is like the other flip side of it. Like you can have that fake it till you make it confidence and do it, but then sometimes like you always don't feel that confident. And
I feel like I'm like doing the opposite where I'm like, I think my jokes are good and they've killed
your jokes are
before.
great.
But like then I go into this show and I'm like, it's like instead of faking it till you make it, I'm like fail it until it's the worst. Like I'm just
Right.
like I like actively sabotage stuff because I'm like they're not loving me in this first second and I'm not like, you know what I mean? So I'm like I'm trying to find ways to do more of that and be like, ooh, like what can I learn from that? And I'm actually I think part of it is too I'm just now, before I used to do comedy, it was just like, I would just go on stage and have fun and like talk about whatever. I had never written my jokes down ever in my life. I didn't even remember my jokes sometimes. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I talked about that a year ago or whatever.
Mhm.
But now I'm trying to like do the process of like kind of making it not math, but like the fun of, ooh, what worked? How can I make that better? Like the fun of working on a joke, which I
Right.
had never really kind of done before. I'm excited about, but like kind of terrified and feel like I'm really bad at still. So I think I'm just really scared of it all still.
I guess maybe if there's any like I don't want to say advice because I'm not sure I'm the person to give advice, but like sometimes like I mean I don't know, open mics are the worst. But sometimes showcases like when you get like 8 to 10 minutes, I don't really care about those shows. I just kind of like those are
That's a brilliant attitude to have. I care so much right now for some reason, and I don't even know why. You
Yeah,
know,
I mean,
like it's so
I don't try to
weird.
like I don't say I don't care. Like I just did Mike's show, Flagship at the Glendale Room. It was great. Shout out to Mike.
Reinstein, very
He's got a
funny,
book
very
coming out
nice.
pretty soon. I told him, I was like, I know this is a Friday night, but I'm just gonna try some stuff. I hope that's
Mhm.
okay. Because it's like not my show. There's also like 6 other performers on it. So even if they don't
Yeah.
like me, they're gonna like hopefully the rest of the show. But also I think like and I think you should too, like even if you were to like, I'm gonna take a wild swing to for a fence, you're likable. Like you have jokes, I'm trying to think like the best way of saying this. Like if you have 10 minutes and you're like, okay, I know I'm gonna try something new, but let me give them a joke up top. So they know I'm funny.
Yeah.
And then just let's acknowledge what's about to happen, something weird. And I think most comedy audiences, especially like smaller audiences, they're like, yeah, try something weird.
Yeah.
And so when it doesn't work, you can acknowledge you're like, well, that didn't work. And then you at least get
Yeah.
a laugh from,
Yeah.
everyone's like, yeah, it didn't work, but thank you for playing with us. Yeah.
I have to be better at that. And the thing is too, like I always feel like I'm not trying to like compare myself to anybody.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I'm not trying to be like even like last night, I'm not trying to be like, oh, you did great and I did bad. Like it's not about
Yeah.
that, right? Like they're two separate things for me where I'm like, I love seeing you thrive. It's one of my greatest joys in this business is watching you like thrive on stage, thrive as a content creator, thrive in your right. Like you're phenomenal talent. And also like I love you deeply.
Thank
But
you.
like then separately, I'm like, oh yeah, like I remember the feeling of like having fun and I'm like, oh yeah, like now I have to work on getting that back and finding the fun again and stuff like that. So I never want you to feel like I'm like, you did good and I did bad. That
Not at
show was
all.
no good.
Not at all. I mean,
Look at me committing
again,
to a character. Sorry.
yeah. I mean, and yeah, I think we've said these things to each other off podcasts, but watching you perform, and also I feel like you have a very strong like this is who you are on stage that I'm envious of. I'll just say it, I'm envious, like the fact that you have this is who I am, boom, 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 and this is what I'm going to talk about, boom, 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 and people are like, yeah, we're here for it. Sometimes I'm just sort of like, who am I? who am I as a performer? And
it's funny to hear that because I'm like, oh God, you're so clear. You're so authentic and so real. I feel like I'm like, I appreciate that that's the way it comes off, that I'm like, this is who I am. Because I very much feel like, who am I now? Like, I knew myself so deeply before, I feel like, and now I'm like, I'm a mom, I guess.
Right.
I'm a wife. I'm a citizen of this country now. Like, it's like so many things are
Yeah.
different.
Well, what I was going to say, and something that's helped me, and I'm still trying to incorporate it in my stand up. I don't know if I'm doing stand up storytelling or somewhere in between, but asking myself the question, how does that make me feel? Has like sort of
joke
helped.
or like,
I'm sorry, say that again.
how does your joke make you feel?
Yeah, especially if I tell a joke. Like, it's so easy for me to tell like a self-deprecating joke and make myself not like I tried very hard last night not to do any relationship type jokes because I've got a ton of them. But like if I'm talking about like, oh, and I said this and she said that, and then try to turn the joke back on me, so everyone so I'm not, everyone's like, oh, this is a really mean dude. He's like, oh no, he's just being self-deprecating. But like, ask myself the question of like, wait a minute, how did that really make me feel? And then like to sort of like, let's go a little bit deeper in it and like figure out what our feelings were. And then can we find another joke, or can we, like, I abandoned one of my bits, one because of time, two because I haven't really processed it all, but I was just sort of like, oh, how do I really feel about this person, and how that trajectory of the rest of my life went from there. I think is like an interesting thing just to kind of take time to think about and figure out like, oh, is this or again, am I still doing comedy, or should I just talk to my therapist?
I'm like, or both.
Yeah.
My therapist did say to me at our last session, she's like, I can't wait to hear how it goes. And I was like, well, we're going to have a lot to talk about when I see her next. I'm literally going to write down like, how did that make me feel? Because I mean, it's very funny because it is a very therapist-y thing to say, but I was like, oh yeah, because like I feel like there's a lot of like last night, a lot of the stuff that felt like, oh, I didn't love how that came across, is because I didn't like talk at all about how it made me feel. It was just like a funny situation, but like, why? How did that? What is in that? Oof. Watch me write it down now. Oh, I started.
Watch me write. Now watch me write it. Now watch me.
Now watch me write. Now watch me write it. Now watch me write. So I like this particular episode of this podcast. I feel like I was a lot less like loose and funny about like stuff. I'm like just feeling really deep and like appreciative and like contemplative about what we did last night, and then what I did and how I feel about it and how I feel about like this process and this project. So I'm like, it's great.
I totally agree. I think like, and if I've said this in this episode, like, forgive me, I'll try to find a way to cut it out. But I think like that is what this is for me, at least, or at least the way I'm approaching this project is I kind of want to go into it with thoughts and incomplete thoughts, to see if in the moment I find something. And if I don't find something, that's fine. But but if I find something on stage and like, I don't know, have you ever told a joke and then you said something you've never said and like you laugh out loud? Like that is such a joy. Yeah.
I think this is one of like that being present enough to find those things on stage is like the best, juiciest, most delicious part of it all.
Yeah. So as you're saying, like being able to like start with an idea or a premise and see how it evolves. This whole like hour is kind of like that for me. Or at least I'm fighting that same sort of like, oh man, I want people to like say that this half hour was solid top to bottom. But the other part of me is like, no, let's just see if we can make it all suck.
And I need some more of that.
Yeah. So I'm glad yesterday's done. I'm glad the first one's done. There was a lot of anxiety. We stayed out. I was really spent. I got home and I just crashed so hard. And then I thought about you when I woke up. I was like, I know I got home like around 12:15 or whatever. And I was like, oh, Aisha has to get up with her family and with her kids. And whatever she was feeling last night, she has to like sort of put that on a shelf and like be mom and be wife and be like everything you are. Like, not to put you in that box. You okay.
I know what you're saying. I was like,
what do you mean Nigerian women cook.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Don't even give me that. But it's funny because it's like, yeah, like I got home, I probably got into bed like around 1.
Right.
And then I wake up at like usually between 5 and 6
Yeah.
because my kids wake up, which is just, I mean, for me, when I used to come home at 1 and have to wake up at 2 to breastfeed and then again at 4 to
Oof.
breastfeed, like
Yeah.
this is better, right?
This is
But I was feeling a lot of stuff and my kids are often like, how was the show? Like, because they know I'm going to a show and stuff. But the best
Aw.
part for me was all of that stuff, like the sort of stuff I was dealing with about whatever, was so easy to put to the side because of Anna, one of my friends who came to the show,
Right.
she brought
Yeah.
for one of my kids this like 3.5 foot tall glow in the dark movable skeleton.
Mhm.
And for me, like, so I was so excited when I got home. I hung it at the front and I was like, I can't wait for my kids to wake up because I'm going to be able to like show them the skeleton. And like literally I'm like, what is life, right? That like one moment ago I was like, man, I'm not even funny, like nobody thinks I'm good, whatever, and I'm like, ooh, but a skeleton, like
Right.
that's all it takes.
You're like,
right?
hey, if like the 15 or how many, we had more than 15, but the people who, if maybe they didn't like my jokes, you know what, who does? My kids.
My kids are gonna be, all I need to do is make the skeleton's mouth talk a little bit and they're like, so
I've had this thought, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. So like I had a roommate when I was in Chicago. He was a funny guy. But I remember when he was quitting comedy, or not doing it as much, he said something that was very like this epiphany for me. He was just like, I don't necessarily love making strangers laugh as much. I love making my girlfriend laugh. And I was just like, oh, that's very, very, very sweet. And then from there, I've had this sort of thought that says like, oh, maybe the goal of comedy is to meet someone or have people in your life that make you want to quit. Maybe that's you've reached the highest form. You're like, oh, I don't need this laughter. I don't need that from people anymore.
Right.
Because whenever we hear someone who's like said like, oh, I'm not doing stand-up anymore, I don't need this anymore, and you're like, oh no, what's it like to be happy? So like you having your children there just loving you, like they don't care how your set went last night, they're just like, our mom's here, and that's really beautiful. Yeah,
it is I always say like my plan B, not the plan B sounds bad because
it's kind of too late,
but like my like fallback plan is my first plan, which is like, people are like, well, what do you, if you can't do comedy? I'm like, no, my first plan is I have my family and my kids. Like that's the first thing. The second thing is everything else.
Right.
So when I think about like my career, I'm like, if everything else fails, like if I could never ever do comedy again, people are like, you suck, stop. It's the worst. Like if everyone hated me, right? Like I got canceled. Like I would be sad and like I would miss it probably, but like my life is full with my kids, So but I think sometimes that's the thing, is like when I didn't have that thing that made me fulfilled, like it was easier to be confident in stand up because I was like, I need this. I need to succeed here. But when you don't need it to succeed, it's like, oh, there are times where I'm like, I love doing stand up and I don't care if I succeed. I just want to have fun. And there are times where I'm like, oh, maybe I don't love this enough that like, I don't want to go out right now. I want to just like stay at home and be with, you know what I mean? Like that feeling. I'm like, then it's the imposter syndrome of like, well, maybe I'm not a real comedian who like burning desire to go out on stage every night.
Here's what I heard, and maybe you can take this with you. It's like, oh, I don't need you guys to laugh at me because I have a support system at home. So now, because I don't need your laughter, I am free on stage to be silly and be fun. And if it works, great. And it probably will work because, like you said, like you feel like you're probably at your best when you're having fun.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if I can get more into that, like, because I feel like it's like sometimes I make it like, this is important. I need this set to go well. And like, the truth is I don't.
Right.
Like I don't. Yeah. So if I let go of that, I have more fun and I'm better. I'm a better comedian. I'm a better actor. I'm a better writer.
Yeah. Just like bring a picture of your family on stage. And before you start your set, just tell the audience, you guys, I don't care about you.
Yeah, you don't matter. These people matter, not you. Okay, so let's get on board with some jokes together.
Like me, please like me.